It's time for our popular War Room trio to give the inside take on the hot issues roiling on the campaign trail. Let's declare war of sorts, friendly war. Jenny Byrne is a former campaign manager for the Conservatives. She's in Toronto here in the studio. Anne McGrath is a former campaign manager for the NDP. And Carleen Verheyen is inside the the Liberal War Room. If you're in the Conservative one, that'd be good. You'd be a heck of a spy, eh?
This morning.
All right, let's start with a poll. I find it kind of interesting. Angus read the poll, and I'm starting to understand now why Justin Trudeau throws Doug Ford's name around far more than he does Andrew Scheer's. It showed that half of Ontario's population would let their vote be swayed, federal vote that is, swayed by the performance of Doug Ford's government. And most are not influenced in a positive way. Meanwhile, Jason Kenney out in Alberta is influencing voters there in a positive way. So I guess, Jenny, to you, this explains why they're using Doug Ford as a punching bag, doesn't it? I guess it's smart strategy.
I guess they think it is, but there's been no translation into any of the ballot numbers. And I've been on doors in Ontario, door knocking, and the provincial government does not come up all that much, and when it does, it's by people that support the policies of the provincial government. So I think I've said this on this program before. I've said it over the course of the last week. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of polls in the next week or so. I think that there's a lot of pollsters making calls. I think there's a lot of parties making voter ID calls, or they should be. And I think that we should all just take it for what it is. There is a good month to go left in this campaign.
Okay. Carleen, makes sense for your leader to do this then? Is this what your War Room's telling you, that Doug Ford's toxic?
Well, I think that the most important thing that the Justin Trudeau campaign is always focused on is Canadians. I mean, one of the mistakes that the Conservative Party made in the last election in 2015 was to focus on Justin Trudeau. And we know that when Conservatives focus on Justin Trudeau and he focuses on Canadians, he's the one that tends to be more successful at the polls. That being said, you have had Nick Nanos on your show a number of times. The Nanos numbers that came out a few days ago showed the Conservatives down at levels closer to the NDP than to the Liberals in Ontario. And there's no doubt in my mind that that's because of the unpopularity of Doug Ford's cuts and the fact that Andrew Scheer is promising to make the same kind of cuts.
Okay, well, we got 1-1 here. And break the tie. Doug Ford, is it worth them continuing to drag him out as the boogeyman that you're going to get in Ottawa if Andrew Scheer's elected?
I think it is worthwhile for them to do that because he is a polarizing figure. His popularity is very, very low, incredibly low, given that he hasn't been in all that long. I mean, if you look at the Alberta numbers, for instance, one of the reasons that those are different is because Jason Kenney and his government are experiencing a bit of a honeymoon phase, which most governments go through. The difference in Ontario is that Doug Ford's has come crashing down. So what you see is the Liberals trying to make him an issue in this campaign and the Conservatives trying to avoid it.
Makes sense.
In the next few days, so that's going to be harder and harder to do, to hide it, because we're heading into some big conflicts in education.
A teacher's strike, that's not going to do good things. All right, I want to talk to you, Carleen, a little bit. Seeing something coming out now, a lot of climate change policies. A bit of a gusher all of a sudden. Maybe Greta Thunberg's inspired this, but probably it was planned all along. Is it true what Brian Mulroney, you think, told me a couple of weeks ago? He said, you can't win this election if you don't have a climate change plan. So how is the public supposed to differentiate? They all sound pretty much along the same lines.
Well, I think
except for carbon tax.
Well, I think that the Liberal Party has been clear for years and years, for over a decade now, that they see it as a central plank of any government platform, or any platform that they would have for any Liberal government. I think, though, that what Mr. Mulroney, former Prime Minister Mulroney, said is probably right, and that's why even the Conservative Party now knows that they can't put out a platform that will be taken seriously unless they've got something in there. But today's announcement by Andrew Scheer kind of said to me that they've been dragged into this kicking and screaming because it was a bunch of buzzwords and not much of a plan.
Jenny, care to engage in those fighting words?
Well, so I'd like to ask Carleen, how much is her plan going to cost? The Prime Minister, if he had as much enthusiasm for costing the items in his platform as he does for costumes, we might be better off. So I think that...
I think the problem is you can't take an affordability lens to an existential crisis.
Carleen, thank you. So what I'd like to ask is what is the costing of this plan? So today there was an announcement of up to $40,000 of interest-free loans given to Canadians if they provide an audit. What is that going to cost the average Canadian taxpayer? And I think that's what the problem the Liberals have with this promise, as well as everything else that they're promising. There is no costing to this, which is actually incredible, considering it was 2 years ago the Liberals actually brought in the mechanism for the Parliamentary Budget Officer to be able to review these matters. And it was 3 months ago that you guys sent out Pablo Rodriguez to complain about other parties not using this, using the Parliamentary Budget Officer. And it's your party is the only one not using it to cost your platform.
All right. But I want to ask you, though, Jenny, these home renovations for people with existing homes, it seems to me you're helping people who have a considerable asset, and people who are being left behind, don't have their own house. They're not going to get much of an advantage out of your plan so far.
Well, the plan is for people. You can't assume, Dawn, that everyone that owns their home is rolling in money. There are people that want to upgrade their home to make their home more energy efficient that just don't have the ability to do so. And what Andrew Scheer announced today will enable those people to be able to make changes and upgrades to their home that will be energy efficient.
Okay, Anne, I want to get you in on this one. You got a plan. Your plan's kind of rolled out. What more needs to be announced, or is that it for the NDP? And how do you deal with these other competing promises?
There certainly will be more announcements as we go along, and they're all based on the platform that we released in June. So, you know, we were first out of the gate in terms of having a full platform out there for people to look at, and a lot of those announcements are getting more flesh on the bones as we go through this campaign. I think Jenny makes an important point, though, about the fact that the Liberals are who opened the door to having the PBO, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, review these things, and yet they're the only ones that aren't actually making use of that. And also, you know, if you look, for instance, at the pharmacare plan that they put out, it is so little that it is it's not a pharmacare plan. I mean, you can call it what you want, but it is not a pharmacare plan.
Yeah, and I want to get you on that one, Carleen. I looked at the PBO list of things he's costed. The Conservatives have a lot there. The Greens have a lot there. The NDP has a lot there. There's a big empty spot where the Liberal promises should be costed. What the heck's going on? Why don't you get him in there and get costing him out?
Well, I mean, the Liberal campaign has been pretty clear, and I think I've seen them make these statements on multiple occasions that the PBO will be costing elements of the Liberal plan, just like they are with all of the others. And there's a lot of campaign left to go. I don't think you're going to see the Liberals break that promise. We're the party that brought in that PBO costing mechanism in the first place, and all in due course.
But address to what they're saying. Your guy says $6 billion for a pharmacare plan, and that will give us more doctors so that everyone has access to a doctor. There's not even anyone close to $6 billion on a price tag for pharmacare. Even your own Parliamentary Budget Officer says those are fun with figures. How do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing is that Justin Trudeau has put down a marker there and said, look, I value an investment in healthcare as a strong fiscal move, and I know that because investing in people's healthcare is a baseline investment in our economy. If you don't have healthy people, you can't have a healthy workforce, you can't drive GDP growth, you can't do all of those things. So he's put down a marker and said, this is an investment that I care deeply about. We've made announcements over the course of the campaign about what that's going to look like. The PBO costing and the costing of the platform is also going to come. There's a lot of runway left in this campaign.
So, Carleen,
very quickly, I'm almost out of time.
So, Carleen, will the costing...
I just want to quickly...
Okay. All right.
I'm dying to get your thoughts on this one, Jenny, so I'm coming to you on this one. A week ago right now, the War Room and the Liberals was going into a frenzy over the brown-face photos that were discovered. The polls haven't really moved. Does that surprise you?
Well, as I said earlier in our segment here, I think that the polls are kind of what they are right now. People are being saturated with phone calls, but I can tell you that on the doors, people are starting to ask questions and showing a level of concern of the hypocrisy and the self-righteousness that this Prime Minister has. You look at stories today in the Globe and Mail of another female MP who was tossed aside because, of course, she didn't prescribe to the feminism or the policies of Justin Trudeau. I think it's just very hypocritical.
Very quick response. Do you want to respond to that at all?
Well, I mean, I think that the Liberal leader has said exactly what he feels about the events of the last week or so. And I think the most important thing that I think I said this on the show last week as well is that when what Canadians want in a leader is somebody who will look them in the eye and say, I was wrong, I screwed up, and that's exactly what Justin Trudeau did.
There's not going to be a full-scale outrage over this. I think, you know, for many people, it is more a sense of growing disappointment, which is, I think, one of the biggest problems that the Liberals are going to have in this campaign.
Okay. Great chat. Thank you all. We'll see you next Wednesday. Who knows where this campaign will be going by then. Thanks again. We'll see you.